All right, so moving on to the agenda for today. So we're going to be looking at simpler recycling as a whole. We're going to break it down to the current challenges that we're finding in the dry mix recycling waste stream and all the other waste streams, the legislation requirements, the materials that you need to separate on site, the reasons for these legislations, and how this will impact your business. So firstly, we're going to touch on current challenges. So there are a lot of current recycling challenges that you may or may not be aware of. These do vary from business to business, depending on what you have. You know, if you have a restaurant, if you have an office area, if you're at home, these all change. But here's some of the main ones that we just want to touch on today. So firstly, the lack of recycling in business areas. So
sorry guys,
if we can just make sure we've all got our mics muted, please. Perfect. All right, lovely. So lack of recycling in business areas. So just making sure that we're actually not using under-desk bins, as this promotes the contamination of waste. You can imagine if I'm working from my desk and I've just eaten, let's say, a meal deal, I've got my banana skin, I've got my plastic bottle, and I've also got my sandwich wrapper, and it's all going to end up in the same bin. This is all going to get collected and disposed of as general waste. We want to be collecting these in the correct waste streams to actually recycle it. And again, this actually leads on to the second point, high contamination levels. When all of these items are actually going into the same waste stream, especially if it's the dry mix recycling or the food waste, we're going to have high contamination levels. So we want to make sure that we're putting the correct items in the correct waste streams. Thirdly, inconsistent policies. So I know in the past the government and other legislations and other companies have been putting out legislations to be in place, and they keep getting postponed or they keep getting pushed back, and it always seems like something new is coming, something else is joining. So we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page today and tackle some of those issues. And then lastly, packaging labels. This is a common misconception, I would say, especially with plastics. So a lot of the time, people are not aware of the recycling symbols. And actually, if those symbols do mean that they can be recycled. So at the bottom of every plastic bottle, so you probably won't be able to see it on here, but there will be a little triangle with the number 1 on it. And that actually just means that type of plastic. So in this case, it will mean that it's a PET plastic, which can be recycled. So just keeping an eye out for those little triangles with the numbers. So they're called resin identification codes. If you see a number 1, a number 2, a number 4, or a number 5, it means that that plastic is recyclable with us. So just keep an eye out for those 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Great. Okay, so moving on to what is simpler recycling. So this is a new legislation that's coming out at the end of the month. And the idea behind the simpler recycling is to make business waste management easier. So they want to standardize it across the whole of the UK and offering the simplified waste collections to reduce the hassling of sorting, which we'll talk about a bit later. But the overall idea is to try and make it easier for businesses and to really increase that recycling rate across the UK. So the dates that are important. So end of March coming up. Any businesses that have over 10 plus employees must recycle food, and if you're with Bywaters, that must include your DMR waste. So the legislation focuses on food, paper, and cardboard. But if you are a Bywaters client, as long as you have a separate food waste and a DMR, your dry mix recycling, you're absolutely fine and you're A-OK for the legislation moving forward. Just some other further dates to be aware of. So by year 27, this will mean that smaller businesses, so less than 10 employees, will have to get ready and get sorted for this legislation. So they're giving those businesses a bit more time. But then also another waste stream that's going to be implemented is flexible plastic. Now, again, this is all about, the amount of plastic that's getting produced UK, globally, and having a legislation means that it's mandatory recycling. It will be cheaper and will increase our recycling rates. One thing to be made aware of, if you do not have these waste streams set up, you could be in with a fine, and there's a risk of you being non-compliant again, which we will talk about in this presentation. So the materials to separate, as we mentioned, it's focusing on food waste, and with bywaters, that just includes your dry mix recycling. There's a picture of our MRF based in Bromley by Bow. So this is where we take all our clients' dry mix recycling and we separate that out for you. So we've spoken with the EA, we've spoken with the organisations and board, and they're absolutely okay with us moving forward to continue with just a dry mix recycling as long as our clients have the food as well. So we're open to MRF tours. So if you're interested in actually coming to see us, please feel free to kind of reach out to your account managers or the customer service team, and you can actually come and visit our MRF to see where we process all your dry mix recycling. Now, we mentioned glass here. Now, this obviously just depends on what type of business you are. So a hotel, a restaurant, even some commercial offices for, if they have large amounts of glass, you would need a separate waste stream. So that's just something to bear in mind. But in terms of this legislation, as long as you have your food waste and your dry mix recycling, you're A-OK. So we only technically need 3 bins, which is great. So the idea here is we just want to try and make it as simple as possible. So this was a letter sent out maybe a month ago. This is from our managing director, John Glover. Basically, this was just to outline to all our clients the kind of do's and don'ts and the rules of the new legislation. And again, this was just highlighting the importance of the food waste and having your paper and cardboard. And this letter basically just explained, as long as you've got your dry mix recycling, that's absolutely fine, and you'll be all good for the legislation moving forward.
Lovely. So now we're just going to touch on contamination in the dry mix recycling and what that looks like. So firstly, I do just want to say that bins that have been contaminated on multiple occasions will not be accepted, and you will be likely leading to extra costs and potential fines, not just from us, but also from the EA. So it's something that we just want to make very clear and make sure that everyone's aware. So just following on from that, we just want to say that we can offer our support to provide the best practices for you guys. So let's say, for example, some examples here: segregating your internal bins, having bins that provide, dry mix recycling, general waste, and then in the kitchen areas and the tea points, having those additional food waste bins. We don't want everything to be going into one waste stream where it could get, contaminated. If you do have a dry mix recycling, we don't want that to be full of food. We don't want that to be full of, crisp packets or coffee cups or anything like that. We actually want to be able to separate all of those materials out. Again, a second one is standardizing bin design and placement. So a lot of times when we go to site visits, we do things like audits, and many of you will be aware of that. But even looking at things like your placement of bins, it might not seem too important, but by having lots and lots of bins, or having too many bins in different areas, or not even having enough bins, it can really make a difference. You can, for example, a lot of people will just get up and they'll go to the closest bin. It's not always the first thing on their mind to put it in the right waste stream. They just want to get rid of their waste. So by having a standardized point, a bin point, where you can actually centralize your waste streams and have them together, it always allows the opportunity to recycle. So again, not having your under desk bins, but by having a little bin point where you can have dry mix recycling, general waste, and in the kitchens, and tea points of food waste as well. Again, another best practice is communicating any changes to your staff. So whether this is this legislation, whether this is just any internal changes that you might have in your office area, whether that's sending a little email out, or even doing like a staff training, we're always available to come down to site and actually run through the different waste streams and talk to you guys about it, and actually just provide some material. So if that's something that you're interested in, reach out. Again, I just do want to stress the importance of using clear, color-coded signage that actually shows the key contaminants as well as what you can put in. So a lot of the time now, signage Sometimes when I go to sites, I just see signs that just says dry mix recycling or just general waste. This is great that you're labeling it, but it's not enough detail. You can imagine if I'm an employee, I don't know what's dry mix recycling, I don't know what's general waste, I'm going to put my things in the wrong place. So this is something that can lead to contamination risks, but it's something that we want to try and crack down and just provide the best practice that we can to avoid that, or to put that to a minimum, really. So again, we do have all of our signage on our website that you can just download for free PDFs. You can just download it. Yeah. And then lastly, just making sure that any recyclables you do have are clean, dry, and loose. So not putting anything that's super wet or oily or greasy or anything like that. Just making sure that the items that you are putting in won't contaminate the other items in those bags. So it's all well and good of me talking about contamination, but what does that look like in everyday life? So on the picture on the right here, this was found in a dry mix recycling bag. So you can see here from this example, we've got lots of food waste in here. This will not be able to be recycled. And not only is it not being able to be recycled, it's contaminating the other waste in this bag. So none of this bag would be able to be recycled. This would have to be separated and be sent to general waste. So in here, we're finding aluminium cans. There's plastic in here at the bottom as well. All of these items could be recycled. Obviously, just maybe giving them a little rinse or giving them a little dry. So it's these items that are the easiest items to get right, but also they very easily can be going wrong if you mix them with your food, if you mix them with oils. So let's make sure that this is at the forefront of everyone's mind. And moving on to the bottom three, we've got some items that I just do want to touch on the food waste. You won't see them in the picture on the right, but it's some things that always end up sometimes in the DMR, sometimes in food waste. So firstly, composite materials. So this is a material which has more than one, a product that has more than one material that's been sort of melded together to create that product. So imagine, let's say, a coffee cup. It's not just made out of paper. It's also got a little silicone lining on the inside. So that, again, is to protect you, the consumer, to protect the coffee itself and to protect the cup. You can imagine if it was just paper, I pour the boiling water in, all the water's going to come out at the bottom. So that's why it's got that lining. But because it has that lining, it means that we can't strip it out of our facility. So it has to go to a specialist facility if possible. And if not, for most cases, it would have to go into the general waste. So just making sure that that's not going in, mixing in with your dry mix recycling. And then the last two, so compostable or biodegradable packaging. This is sort of a newer phenomenon in the last, I want to say, past 10 years, really. Yeah. It started to kick off. But we're finding a lot of these items that are ending up in the food waste in particular. People think, oh, okay, it says compostable, it says biodegradable. I can just put it in this waste stream. Unfortunately, it doesn't break down in the same way that the food would break down. So it's actually a key contaminant in that waste stream, and they will remove it. And again, that can lead to fines and things like that. And lastly, I just want to touch on tissues. These always end up in the wrong waste streams. It seems like they're always going into the dry mix recycling. They're always going into the food waste. Even if they've been used, people just think that they can go into them. And again, it's just another contaminant. They can't go into these waste streams. They would have to go into the general waste. So we do have, lucky for you, we do have a few tips, shall we say, where you can tell if something is recyclable or not. So the first one is called the scrunch test. I'm sure many of you have heard of this before. But what it is it helps to determine if something is a composite material or made out of one material. So from the example, you can see that person is scrunching a crisp packet. So that is actually a composite material. You can see you scrunch it, and once you let go, it actually expands up again. So that's actually just because it's made of more than one material. The fibers are quite rigid, and it's actually bouncing back out into that shape. So that's something that you can sort of test with, even with like wrapping paper as well. A lot of the wrapping papers are lined. So if you scrunch it up, they're not always just made of paper. Sometimes they're lined. And if it opens back up, it means, again, it's lined, it's a composite material, would have to go into the general waste. And if you see in the other example, the lady is actually squishing a piece of paper and it doesn't open back up again, that means it's literally just made out of one material, just made out of paper, and it can be recycled. And then just below that is the tip test. So I don't recommend actually doing this, but this is something that you could think about and to see if you think something is too contaminated to be recycled. So in this example, we've got a yogurt pot. You know, let's say you've just enjoyed a lovely yogurt. Oh, there's still some residue around the side. You're thinking, oh, is this too dirty to go into my waste stream? You can have a look. If you think, okay, oh, I can tip it on my head and nothing's going to come out. If you think that's the case, it's fine. It's not going to move around too much in the bag and it's not going to contaminate the other items. If you think there is no way I'm going to do that, all of the yogurt is going to fall onto my head, then it probably means it's probably a bit too much residue. Just give it either a little rinse or a wipe with a tissue, and it should be able to be okay into the dry mix recycling.
So, okay, so the reasons for the legislation, so that again, the idea of this is it's increasing the recycling rates across the UK, and it's promoting more of a circular economy, and also it's saying that there's a cost benefit. So for your general waste, that costs a lot more compared to your dry mix recycling. So the idea is for businesses to try and recycle more, so less waste will be going into your general waste, and that means you'll be paying less. And again, just with the environmental impact, by making a food waste stream mandatory, it means that we're going to try and capture more food waste, and that won't be going into general waste that gets incinerated if you use bywaters. But other UK companies are still using landfill, which I'm sure you've heard with all the issues with food going into landfill, creating lots of methane. So the idea is for us to capture as much food waste as possible and put it in the right end destination. So for us, that would be anaerobic digestion, which is where we send it to our partner biocollectors, and they actually create biofuel, and the byproduct of the anaerobic digestion creates a slurry and fertilizer. So here just talks about the conversion. If you're diverting it away from landfill, you're saving 600 kilos of carbon emissions, which is a 98% reduction. So that's the equivalent of driving 1,500 miles. So that kind of gives you the idea of if food isn't recycled properly, it can cause a lot.
Shows the scale. Really.
Exactly. So will it make your business more sustainable? The answer is yes, because you're bringing out a mandatory recycling legislation. So it means you have to start recycling more waste streams, which in this day and age needs to be done. The amount of plastic, the amount of products that we're creating. So the idea is just to ensure that businesses are putting them in the right bins and we're capturing the right amount of waste, and it's going to the right end destinations. Plastic getting remade into plastic bottles, aluminium getting remade into new cans, that sort of thing. So it's going to definitely help with the recycling process. And in terms of it can even make businesses look at the changing of their packaging. Emmanuel mentioned the kind of compostable, biodegradable issue.
Yep.
At the moment, that is up to the consumer to decide on what bin it ends up in. But, this is something that businesses as a whole need to kind of start looking into, the labeling and the packaging sort of area. So this will definitely make a positive impact for sure on our recycling to come.
So how will it be enforced? It will be regulated mainly by the EA, and this is in collaboration with your waste carriers. So this is in collaboration with Bywaters at the moment, and they will be using a variety of different methods, the main one being digital waste tracking. So they'll be able to track what's going on, where it's being sent to, and obviously if there's any contamination. And again, I know I've mentioned it already, but I can't stress the importance of the penalties. You can get fines for non-compliance. Again, if it's repeat offences and if it's lots and lots of contamination, this can lead to lots of costs for your business, basically. So again, it goes into the importance of segregating and making sure that it's all correct. And here are some of the reasons why it's important. So boosting your recycling efficiency, you're getting higher scores, which is what it's what we're all striving for, I think, to have an increase in recycling rate, but also the lower carbon emissions as well. So by diverting your food waste out, you're reducing your gases produced. So like Phoebe touched on before, and you're actually creating a circular economy product from that. So that's something I think we should all be striving for, especially if you're owning a restaurant or anything that's producing a lot of food. Again, conserving natural resources. We don't want to be creating products all the time from virgin materials. We want to actually be, again, circular economy products if possible, and then moving on to things that can be recycled indefinitely. So like your aluminium, things like that. Again, I know we've already mentioned this, but cutting costs. So firstly, general waste is actually more expensive to collect than dry mix recycling. and food. So if you are separating it, you are removing the waste from the general waste, and it's actually going into your other waste streams, which are comparatively cheaper. And again, lastly, you're ensuring legal compliance, which I think is the main thing that we want to focus on today. Just make sure we're all in line with that. And lastly, how can businesses improve recycling on site? So throughout the webinar today, and I know a lot of you have had meetings and consultations and audits and all sorts with us in the sustainability team and with your account managers. And these are things that we always are pushing. So let's go through each one and sort of provide a reason. So firstly, clear bin bags. This is something that we always stress on. It's something that's very, very big at the moment. So firstly, let's say if we had some black bin bags, there's two reasons why we don't like that. The first one is health and safety, of course. If you have something sharp going into a black bin bag and your cleaning staff are coming around to collect it, they don't know what's in there. They might pick it up and accidentally, cut themselves or anything like that. We don't want this to happen. And secondly, if we are taking these black bin bags from site, we can actually do a quick visual inspection. If they were obviously clear, if they were black, we can't see inside. We don't know what's going on there. If it was clear, we can see, oh, you know what? This general waste bag actually has a lot of dry mix recycling items. We can save these items. That's something that we want to do. So that's point number one. Number two is all about education. It's all about education at the end of the day, making sure that we're all up to date on the same legislations, making sure that all staff, visitors to an extent, but all staff are the main ones. So we want to actually just involve making sure that we know what goes in each waste stream, why it's important, even the end destinations as well. So we can always provide information packs or posters or anything like that that we can send out to you if that's something that you want. Again, reducing waste. You're reducing your waste on site, you're being more green as a business, and you're reducing your costs as a result of that. Implementing food waste bins, again, in line with the legislation, just making sure that we have all of these. And this is key. You're reducing your contamination as well. Some things that we've actually done on different sites before is we sort of set up incentives or challenges for different offices or different floors, let's say, to actually go against each other. Maybe they have a little bit of a leaderboard, something that we're going to touch on a bit later on, but a little bit of a leaderboard to sort of track where you are in comparison to other businesses that are of a similar industry to you or even in the same place as you. So a little bit of friendly competition. Nobody wants to be the worst, right? We all want to try and strive for the best. And lastly, just constantly reviewing and improving your process on site. So I've mentioned this a few times already, but audits, we conduct audits in the sustainability team. We can go to site, we can have a look at your current waste setups, and we can sort of say, this is good, we recommend you actually to increase on this or to change this over. And we'll provide written reports for you where you'll be able to follow these recommendations and hopefully implement some new changes.
So last slide, this is basically just a bit of a Bywaters update. So again, existing clients, hopefully you're using your Brad. This is now Brad 2.0, which went live this week. So new features, new look, a lot sleeker in my opinion. But just in terms of some kind of quick new features, so here on the right-hand side, just above the picture of Emmanuel, you can see a graph here. And we've actually put in a setting where businesses can now compare themselves to similar businesses within the sector. So as Emmanuel mentioned, it's a kind of leaderboard for you to compare yourself with other businesses of the same sector to see how well you are doing. Which is really great. I know some clients have specifically asked for that, so I'm glad we can finally show that to you guys. And then similar processes of telling you, percentage of general waste, total waste, how much you've recycled, that sort of thing. But a further update on our CO2 emissions. So for businesses who are measuring their scope 1, 2, and 3, this will be super useful for your data. The carbon emissions, as it includes the transport from us to your site to back to us again. So it's just that bit more
just in depth, really.
Exactly. And then of course you can have some information. So all webinars will be on your Brad.
Never miss another webinar. It's always going to be there for you guys.
The waste audit reports that Emmanuel mentioned, that will all be saved to your personal account as well as, of course, for your legislation waste transfer notes. All your documents will be similar, but they were just a few cool new features. And again, if anyone needs assistance with logging in or tutorial, again, message your account managers, or if you've got a sustainability contact, or of course customer service. So we'll be there to kind of support you guys with the new Brad 2.0.
Perfect.
So yeah, now I think we'll go to
any questions. Any questions?
For the questions, maybe should we get people to type them in, just so we're not all just shouting over each other?
Yeah, or maybe raising your hands, just so we can sort of regulate it just a little bit easier from our side, just because we don't want everyone, like you said, shouting over each other.
Sure.
But yeah, hopefully you've got some burning questions, anything that you really want us to answer. Please do let us know.
Okay, we've got some in the chat. Yeah.
Just get it up.
Let me get it up. Okay. Oh, got a few.
Got a few from earlier on, so let's start with that.
Top. Okay. So most contamination comes from domestic bins. Office is easy. Are we planning something regarding that?
So just on that, yeah, you say offices are easy, but at the same time, they're the easiest ones to get wrong. I think a lot of the time we're finding that, especially if it's certain types of offices, maybe, it's not on the forefront of their mind. They're not thinking about it. And I'll go to site, and I'm sure Phoebe's gone to many sites where you go in and you check and it's all under desk bins, it's all general waste, or it's all being put in the wrong waste streams. They might even have the right waste streams on site, but it's just all being put everywhere. So just making sure that we're using the information that we've provided today, just to make sure we update those areas.
Yeah, but I think also most contamination comes from the domestic bin. So again, that's just highlighting
it should be going into the
recycling. So unfortunately, if it does end up in your general waste, we do not have the means or the resources to go through the general waste and pull out that recyclable. So anything that you are putting in your general waste, if it's recyclable material, you're essentially overpaying for that to get processed. So that's why we try and highlight as much as possible to put the correct items in the correct waste stream, because unfortunately once it goes into those general waste bins, that's going straight to incineration. So Rodrigo.
Hi Rodrigo, there you go. How are you? Hope you're doing well.
Are there any updates on the food waste pre-treatment at source, so macerators, fruit and food shredders? Yes, so reading through on the government website, and there was nothing on the kind of what type of pre-treatment plan you use. It literally just says that you have to separate your food waste. So Rory, the head of sustainability here at Bywaters, he said, if you do have a macerator in place, then that is fine. Continue doing that, but there would be something to add in terms of Scotland, I believe, has banned macerators. So there has been talk that this might come to England.
Yeah, so again, just touch on what we spoke about earlier in the presentation, where it's policies that are maybe being presented in the wrong way, or the government seems to be following up on something and then they don't, and it's a bit confusing at times. So if you do have macerators on site at the moment, they're fine, but just be wary that it might not always be the case.
Yeah, so just which of course, if there is any changes, we'll send out emails, that sort of thing. But maybe if you don't have a macerator now,
I would not choose to get
but
one.
if you have one already, you are fine with this current legislation.
Perfect. And James writes, what recommendations do you have regarding schools and managing separating food waste from general or dry recycling when food is taken out of the dining rooms and consumed around campus and grounds? That's a great question. I think it just comes down to providing the correct bins in those places. I know it's hard to do in schools where you're probably going to be having lots of general waste bins outside of the food area, so like the canteen or anything like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, James. But I think it just comes down to adding the correct waste streams in places.
Yeah. So what we advise for schools as well is to still have that kind of centralized bin system, as well as what we'd advise for, commercial offices, that sort of thing. And as Emmanuel said, that's all well and good in the canteen and kitchen areas, but in corridors or things like that, instead of having bins in every classroom, again, have that centralized 3 bins in certain corridors. So again, if we can come visit your site. I'm not sure what client customer you're from, but again, we would we would recommend the centralized bins in corridors, so that would mean students would have to,
and signage as well, just making sure that all the signage is actually on every bin, and it's all clear to see. I mean, we do understand that there's always going to be an aspect of contamination, especially at schools, and when working with large crowds of people, it's very difficult to sort of make sure that everything's 100%, but you can only do as much as you can do. And in this case, it's just having the correct waste streams in place, having the correct signage, and even maybe just doing small educational pieces with the students.
And green champions. So one student from every class or every year, or however you think it would work, and then maybe having monthly meetings with those students again, so that they can put forward their ideas of what they think their school's already doing well and needs to improve. That always tends to help.
Hopefully that answers your question, James. So Hannah Rowe, are there any restrictions in the food waste, i.e. cooked versus raw, etc.? Where do tea bags go? So that's a great question. So on the food waste, anything really that you can consume can go into the food waste. That means cooked food, raw food, whatever it may be.
Raw bones, bones
can go into there. Again, bones, like Phoebe just said now, fish bones,
beef,
chicken,
lamb, chicken, whatever you want, as long as you haven't butchered an animal.
Yes, exactly.
So whatever food you can buy from the supermarket, you can.
And then also coffee grounds and tea bags, they can all go into the food waste. It's not a problem, even though I always get this as well. Some tea bags have the string. That's fine. They can all go into the food waste. Not a problem. The only tea bag that I've had a problem with is ones that have staples on them. It's quite strange, but it's the metal that's the problem.
Okay.
So if you do have staples on your tea bags, just remove them, I guess. It's a bit of a strange one. You don't really normally see it, but if you do, now you know.
And if not, general waste.
Yeah, just rip it off and put that bit into the general waste.
Yeah.
So next we have from Rennie, how does the new legislation relate to residential properties? I think that's a great question, actually. I can't really speak from a lot of the council side of things, but I would say just as long as you're segregating your waste as best as you can. I don't know from where I am. So I actually live in North London, and I actually don't have a food waste bin.
Yeah, so local councils, it'll be 26 for the local.
Yeah, so it'll be from 2026. So it's a little bit of a different pathway. Businesses are sort of being pushed first, and then the households will follow the next year.
Yeah, so for March 2026, your every council will hopefully be doing the same thing.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Moving on, we've got what about oil waste? I think this will have to get collected separately. If I'm honest, I wouldn't be able to go into any of the 3 waste streams that we've spoken about today.
Definitely depends on quantity. So, if you're a restaurant, hotel, we have a separate oil waste stream. We have a few partners that collect and again use that for biofuel. So that would depend on the quantity, but I would suspect separate waste stream.
Yep. George, hi George, how are you? We've got, do you report on financial data on Brad 2?
Yeah, so again, similar to Brad 1, you have the different sections at the top. It's got I think it's literally called your financial tabs. So you'll have all invoices from when you started working with Bywaters. And in terms of users, you can also tell us, X user needs to see waste data and financials, or someone could just see financials. So you can also tell us which users you'd like to see what data.
Yep. How can we get guests in hotels to recycle better, and what resources will we need to provide? Again, great question. I think it just comes down to bin placement and also what types of bins you're offering in these areas.
Yeah.
So let's say in every room, I'd say most likely you're probably going to be having an underdesk bin in a room, especially if it's a small room. This unfortunately is just going to be mostly going to general waste. There are alternatives where you can have smaller underdesk bins, but they do offer a segregation point. So you can have one of those smaller bins. It's probably about the same size as like an underdesk bin, but it just allows you to separate your dry mix recycling from your general waste. So I definitely recommend getting that in place if possible, if you don't have that already. And also signage tends to help. So if you can get signage as well, again, slap that on.
And also from kind of working with our existing customers who are hotels, a lot of that is the kind of training with your cleaning staff. So as Emmanuel mentioned, we can offer waste training to your cleaning teams. So it's about kind of chatting to them to see, because they've got a lot to do in limited time. So, some hotels have signage in the hotel room saying, any recyclables leave on the countertop sort of thing. And, so you can come up with different rules. But again, it would just be good to kind of speak to your cleaning staff, and we can offer them training to see what they would feel.
There's no one solution fits all for these sort of areas where you're getting lots of different people in. You're probably just going to have to tailor it to what is happening at your hotel.
And what your staff can
exactly
can take.
Next, we've got, if you're using charcoal which is burnt out, would this go into the general waste when fully cooled down? I believe so. If you've got no alternative waste streams, I think it would have to go into the general waste.
Yeah,
it definitely would not be able to go into your dry mix recycling or food.
As long as
it's completely fully cooled down, and that's fine. Next, we've got, I have a lot of hand towel waste. How can I recycle these and stop cross-contamination? Great question.
Because we've got a new waste stream.
Yes, so you can get yourself set up with a brand new waste stream that we can provide now, a hand towel waste stream. So this, again, will need to be completely segregated from the existing waste streams that you've got, and it would only be hand towels that will be allowed to go in there. So make sure you're not mixing that in with anything else. But again, you can have a separate waste stream for that, and it will stop any contamination, shall we say.
And that's through Talk. So we're working with Talk to offer that recycling waste stream. We've got a handful of clients currently trialing it. So again, it's about boosting recycling percentages. If you guys have targets that you're looking to achieve, so
that will be shown on your Brad 2.0 as well. So next we've got Tom. To collect DMR's single waste stream after simple recycling comes into play, I assume you need a written exemption from DEFRA. I'll be interested to know on what grounds the exemption has been granted. That's a great question, Tom. We can try and get back to you if you want anything specific that was said. I think just from our side, like Phoebe mentioned earlier, we've spoken to the EA and we've spoken to the relevant parties from our side. And
we'll have that.
And they've said that it was fine because we are separating it all out at our facility. But we can get back to you with more information on that. All right, moving on. Will we have immediate access to the updated online portal as mentioned? It should be live. It should be live.
It went live this week.
So
this was sent to all clients. So check your junk. But if not,
drop us an email. Drop us an email. We'll get you set up if you don't have access already. What advice can you give for retail charity shops regarding food waste? We have 20 shops and only a couple of staff/volunteers per shop. So regarding food waste, I would say maybe just get a small food caddy for the kitchen area, just behind the scenes. I don't think you really need more than that unless for some reason you're producing a lot of food waste. I think that should cover you, especially if you say you've only got a few staff and volunteers. per area. You don't need to have huge bins or loads and loads of collections. It just needs to be tailored to what you need on site. So in this case, I'll probably recommend just having a small food caddy, maybe something like this, and you can just use that really.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Moving on, Shona says, any suggestions for separating the 3 streams in a very small space? We have small stores, so space is already very light. So again, similar to the hotel question we had earlier, there are opportunities to actually segregate within a smaller like bins. So like the size of an under-desk bin, I've seen them, I've gone to sites and I've recommended them, and they are quite small, but they will have the different waste streams.
Yeah.
So I guess something like that would probably be the best fit for you.
Yeah.
In your areas.
What could be useful also actually is maybe sending the bin brochure to everyone who signed up to this webinar. And then that could kind of show you an example of what bins we kind of provide. But again, you can source it somewhere else, that sort of thing. But just to give you an idea of, the different types of bins out there.
Perfect. And Alex, hi Alex, hope you're well. We've got regarding the non-compliance with the management team, will the management team, receive notifications of offences prior to penalties? We are using barcode stickers for our occupier waste streams. So if notifications will be sent, will that highlight the offender? That is a great question. I think we'll be able to find out more details in time. I wouldn't be able to fully confidently say the exact answer from now, but I would assume that you would all be notified prior to any penalties, that you wouldn't just be hit with a fine or anything like that. I think you would be notified. I think it does go down to multiple offences as well. So you should get a notification for each offence, if that makes sense. Hopefully that sort of covered the question, Alex. Moving on, what about construction waste that is packed in recycled packaging, like BAT or PPE? That's a good question. What would we do with that? So
are you able to separate it?
If you can separate the packaging from the waste, then I would say put that recyclable packaging into your DMR or the correct waste stream that's supposed to go into, and then get the construction waste collected separately. If you mean that it can't be stripped and it is all together in one, that would have to be collected as a separate collection. You wouldn't be able to put that into your dry mix recycling or anything like that.
So again, at Bywashers, we have a separate waste stream for construction waste as well. Just obviously due to the nature, the bulkiness. We're dealing with concrete, huge bits of metal, wood, that sort of thing. So that's an entirely different process and part of the business that does not come to the MRF. That goes to our other site, Gateway Road. That would probably be dealt with in a separate stream if you can't separate.
Rodrigo, regarding Brad, would the new platform include contract specific scope 3 reporting data? So on there, like Phoebe showed you, there's quite a few little tabs that do outline different emissions. So that could be the emissions from us driving to site to collect the waste and driving back, or the emissions compared to if it was going to landfill or anything like that. So we do have various points of data that you can use for your scope 3 emissions. So,
and we've also just completed our ISO for carbon reporting, so that all those calculations have been triple checked and kind of ticked off. The idea is it's supposed to be more useful for scope 3 for sure compared to previous.
So moving on, is this legislation relevant for a public realm area of a larger managed estate, i.e. an estate that has lots of bins in an outside area? If it's all coming under one estate, I would say yes. I think we'll probably have to double check for you, but I would say yes, as if it's all being collected in the same place, if it's all being collected from the same place, I would say yes. What would you say, Phoebe?
I think so. Larger managed estate, what is that? Is that commercial or residential?
Maybe if you'd like to drop us an email, we can get back to you with some more information on that. Perfect. Moving on. If you raise your hand, if you'd like to come off mute and
Yep, sorry, thanks. That's from me. Hi guys. Thank you very much for that. That's really helpful in terms of the presentation. Thank you. So yeah, my estate's a little bit different. So it's like a public realm estate, 160 acres. It's in Greenwich. So we've got a lot of public realm general waste bins, but technically we've only got 3 employees, and then we work with a number of contractors.
Okay.
So and it all goes back to kind of one area where we have general waste collected by currently Veolia, but it would be Bywaters shortly. Most likely. So it's kind of whether that'd be relevant for us, because it's basically like a large kind of open park kind of thing in a way with lots of buildings. It's a mixture of commercial, residential. It's quite a unique setup.
If that's the case, I would say you said that you have only a few employees. So the legislation is quite specific with saying over 10 employees.
Yeah.
So I would say for now, the 2025 edition, probably not. But when it goes over to 2027, where it includes smaller businesses with less than 10 employees, probably yes.
But again, if you also want to send your email to us, and
if you drop us a line, we'll follow up on that with a bit more information from our compliance side.
Perfect. It's only because I've had ambiguity. I've talked to different people, so a couple of people from Bywaters, someone from Veolia, someone from the council, and it was just a mixture of different kind of responses, as you probably can guess. So, but that'd be great. I'll go back to our email. We'll go from there. I won't take up too much more time. But thank you very much, guys.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, we've got John. In the alert for the new portal, it states if you have an account already with the previous version of Brad, you'll need to create a new login for the latest version of Brad. If you require access, please contact your account manager. Is this the case? As currently what I see is the old version.
Okay.
I would definitely drop a line. Yeah, definitely drop a line to your account manager or customer service, and we can try and sort that problem for you. I feel like it's quite an easy fix.
Definitely. We can sort that for you, John. Oh,
John,
there he is.
Your hand up if you take the floor.
John?
Okay,
just
never mind.
that. Well done.
Fine. Perfect.
No, I pressed the wrong button. I just wanted to say thank you. Cheers,
great.
guys.
Thanks, John. All right, so Hannah, bin brochure would be very helpful. That's just touching on what you said earlier, Phoebe. And signage, packs, posters will be useful too.
And
we can
as Emmanuel said, that's all on our website.
That's all on our website. So if you do just want to bywaters.co.uk, and then we've got a whole load of stuff on there that will be useful. Alternatively, if you just drop us an email, we can respond. Yeah, we can send that straight over to you. And Peter says, regarding contamination, our current bins are often targeted by fly tippers that, among other things, put recyclable items in our general waste bin and vice versa. Would we be liable for this? That's a great question.
Yeah. So, I mean, as unfair as it is, technically that is your bin, your waste transfer note for your XYZ business. And I know in the past, people look at lockable bins.
Yes, I was going to say. I think you'd have to provide evidence as well. If you weren't having lockable bins and you had fly tipping, if anything was to come of it, and you did get a complaint or something like that, you would have to provide evidence, I would say.
Yeah,
but
take photos.
Take photos, just in case, just to have that available for you. But like Phoebe said, I would definitely recommend having lockable bins. That way you can try and put a stop to
the fly tipping, crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
Oh, festival and events be similar to the public estate. We don't have over 10 employees, but we have a lot of attendees. Well, in my mind, that would be a great, having kind of festivals and.
I think it would be a great opportunity to set the standard.
Yeah.
I don't think that with the legislation rules, because obviously you've got less than 10 employees, you said it would be affecting you for the 2025 edition. But
it could work out as cheaper anyway, because a festival, that's going to be a lot of plastic cups, different cans, Coca-Cola, maybe alcoholic.
Depending on the waste that you're producing on site, it could be cheaper. It could be cheaper. To have
recycling
but also,
anyway.
Just consider the contamination aspect as well. If you're having lots and lots of food or even other materials that are likely going to be general waste that will be able to contaminate other items, maybe just have a think about it, what works best in your area.
And so on the food thing, chatting to your suppliers. So if you'll have different food vans on site, before your events, chat to them to ask, what type of disposable products are they using? Will they be using the paper products or compostable? Again, so you'll have a better idea of of the type of waste you might be producing at these events.
Yeah.
That will also help you determine what waste streams you would need.
Exactly. And lastly, moving on, are you open for live workshops with schools? To educate the new generation is the most important, to work in collaboration with schools. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Education is everything at the end of the day. And it is something that we've actually done in the past. So we've worked with our local school, Bow School, which is literally 1 minute walk away from our facility. If you ever come to our Murph, Bow School is right next to us. And it's something that we've done lots and lots of work with. We've done lots of training sessions. We've done education pieces. We've even done river cleans and things like that with the students to sort of keep them up to date in a fun and educational way.
Yeah, exactly. And universities.
Yeah, lots of work with universities.
Currently working with LIS,
UCL.
Mary, UCL. We've got some interns coming to work with us. So yeah, we love that idea, and we definitely want to continue doing that. Okay. Peter, new one just came in. Charity organises litter picking events. Great. We don't currently segregate the waste. Would the new rule require us to do this? Litter is usually disposed of by the council in the area that you're working on. So from a legal standpoint,
I mean, considering as it's litter picking, you're not really, it's not from your waste streams. So I would say
legally no.
Legally no, but also the type of waste that you're going to be picking up is mostly going to be general waste anyways. So yeah, I mean, when we do litter picking events, a lot of the items that we're finding are very, very dirty. If you did put that into the dry mix recycling,
it could be a contaminant
anyways. So I would say it's fine to leave those items going to general waste.
Yeah, if you've got time, if you've got the time and resource to separate, that would be great. But as Emmanuel said, realistically, I mean, the types of litter picks that we do, it is along the river. So a lot of the plastic has been degrading for some time in the water. And
picking that up is wet, it will contaminate the other items. So, but if it's dry and high quality, if you could maybe have 2 sacks while you're out picking, one for recycling, one for general waste, that'd be great. But from a legal standpoint, no, you don't need to do that. Yeah, perfect. All right.
Well, that's nearly an hour, so we don't want to take up too much more of your time.
Yeah, for sure. If anyone does have any follow-up questions or anything, don't hesitate to drop us a line, drop us an email.
Yeah, maybe if you could put your email address in this group chat for the ones that wanted to ask us questions, and we can send you guys the answers.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. And we will send out the presentation. Actually, one thing as well, great that you mentioned it. We will upload it onto YouTube. Is that correct? Yeah, onto YouTube. So you will be able to watch that anytime in your own time. You can forward that on to your staff, your employees, anything else.
And again, as long as you've got a separate food waste stream and your current dry mix recycling with Bywaters, and you're more than 10 employees of a business, you are good to go.
Okay.
For simpler recycling.
There we go.
Catch you later.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.